Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate life and the pursuit of happiness, presented by the Yes Team Realtors. The Yes Team Realtors. My favorite day, two of my favorite, I get to spend an hour with my inner circle friend. His name is Keith Smith. He's a great dude, the distinguished gentleman. 57 with the spirit of a 17-year-old and the maturity level of maybe someone who's 14 from time to time. Keith Smith, a talented, insightful real estate agent.
That's insulting 14-year-olds.
Judo. That was funny.
It's insulting.
That was funny. What are you saying? What are you saying?
Just insulting 14-year-olds.
It depends on the day.
Yeah. Probably the second.
Judo Wickhour. This is going to be a good show.
I'm looking forward to it. It's just me and you doing our thing. I'm loving it.
Batman and Robin and Alfred.
And we have a little Alfred will put up a little clip here for the minute. For those on Instagram, you won't be able to see it, but we'll describe it once it comes.
Oh, he's already got it on screen. Judo Wickhour. Dude, the chemistry is like three people here.
Well, I whispered in his ear before the show.
Oh, you said put that damn thing on, Keith Smith.
Executive director.
I really hope you do come through with the Batman and Robin, because my kid, based on what you said on the show.
It's already ordered.
Oh, it is? Okay. My kid.
I hope I got your right size.
I'm a medium.
Small.
Right between small and medium. A medium.
I don't think they got that.
It's the black and white cookie, Jerry. The black and white cookie.
So I got a small. Good luck stretching into it.
I'll tell you how important this is. Our entire family's Halloween outfits are based on you getting me a Robin outfit. My son is going as Batman, and my wife is going as Catwoman.
Good for you.
Yeah, I know. All right.
Touché. Well done.
Speaking of coffee, MarieBette, Keith Smith.
Yeah, I went ahead and did my traditional get a cup of coffee, get a little bit of something, and actually this morning I picked up one of their braided croissants.
Really?
You ever had one of them?
No? Amazing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So this may sound a little whatever. So I'm not trying to sound hoity-toity or whatever, but we're very blessed to travel, been able to travel, and I've been throughout France, Paris, southern France, in the Provence, and been up in Bordeaux. I tell you what, their croissants, in my opinion, is better.
Wow.
And I mean that truly.
Wow.
So yeah, they're doing great. I was asking how business is, and they're surviving, which is great news, and they're just lovely guys, and just honored to have them as part of the show. You
got questions already coming in.
I'm ready.
Should we do it?
Sure.
This is a real estate question, and it's from one of your colleagues, someone who we really like, Ray Cadell.
Hey, Ray.
Are you ready for this?
I am for Ray.
I have clients on Instagram. This is a comment that came in on Facebook, so if you have comments, just put it in the feed, and we'll relay it to distinguished gentlemen. Ray Cadell, an agent, says, I have clients, Keith, who want to see a property. On the market one day, appointments are booked every 30 minutes, yesterday through today, from 8 a.m. through 8:30 p.m. That's not healthy or balanced. Do you think the price is artificially low to attract multiple offers? And do you think that services the real estate market well if that is the case? Is that good for the market, basically he's saying? Tough questions right off the bat, huh?
Thanks, Ray. I love you, brother.
I mean, that's a heck of a lot of interest.
Yeah, so Ray has brought this up before. I've heard this on the show, and my perspective on that is I think at the end of the day, and I'd have to really look into it, who's the agent on the other side and who's the listing agent on the other side and all that stuff. I would like to believe, because I believe in the best of people kind of right out of the box, right? I think that the client, I'm hoping that they looked at what the market was and they put it on there to do that. I hope it was not for the reason that I think Ray is outlining.
What, multiple offers, escalators?
Escalators and all that stuff. And, and it really, I guess it depends on the price point and so forth and so on. I'm assuming it's probably at the entry level price point on that end of it.
For interest like that, and 30-minute blocked appointments, all 8:30 a.m. yesterday through 8:30 a.m.
It's at a certain price point.
It's probably got to be what, Ray, $350 and under, I would guess?
It depends on the where, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think, what I caution our how Yonna and I take this perspective, and if somebody was going to say, I want to artificially put it down low, we'd probably not list that out. We would walk away. So I'm hoping that happens. But our perspective, what we'll do is we'll do an honest CMA, an honest market analysis.
CMA is
cost market analysis.
Okay.
So we'll do our homework, we'll put it out there, and all that stuff, and then we'll prep our client that look most likely at this price. We're going to go ahead and do this. The other caution we have to, unless we get in cash offers, we talk about this on the show all the time. It takes 3 people to do a deal now.
right.
3 entities.
Don't forget that lender.
Right, so if it doesn't appraise, and we're actually dealing with a case right now, as it was run at a case, but a transaction right now, that the appraisal is $10,000 below the contract price, and we're representing the buyer on this particular issue. It's new construction, so it's a little bit different.
This might give you more perspective.
Sure.
He says it's over the mountain, which we know is booming.
Got it. Yeah.
And $200,000.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Again, my hope, I sit on the board.
Yeah.
Right? And these people are in our
Tell them the board you sit on.
Of Charlottesville Area Association of Realtors. So I want to believe that they didn't artificially put this down low. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Can I play devil's advocate with you?
Sure.
An agent that artificially, maybe the word is strategic, an agent that strategically lists a home 5, 7, 10% below.
So let me stop you there for a
Okay.
second.
Okay.
It's not the agent that does this.
Okay. Correct. Educate me.
Right? So it's ultimately the client. The seller is the one that determines.
But the agent does have influence.
It has influence. The decision the agent has
Of
to
course, it's the
make is,
client.
do I wish to participate in this or not?
Touche.
Right.
Touche.
So that's the decision there. Do I wish to? Because I know where Ray's going.
Yeah. Well, okay, how
It's
about this?
unethical, frankly.
Is it unethical? Why is it unethical?
Well,
Because and I'm just playing devil's advocate. I learned from you.
Well, I think Ray would probably answer this question a lot better. We should get him to call in.
Ray, do we think it's unethical? Do we think it's unethical?
I bet you he thinks it is.
Put in the feed. And here's what I'm asking. If the agent and other agents that are watching, Quentin Beckham, I see you watching. Long and Foster, I see you watching. Real Estate 3, I see you watching. If an agent and someone who's selling your home list the crib, list the house 5 or 10% below its actual value, and it drums up obscene demand.
But think about it. Just to stop you for a second.
Okay.
Right. So $200,000.
Yeah.
What's 5% of $200,000?
$10K.
So it's $190.
Yeah.
I don't know what the actual value of the house is, and Ray probably knows this because he's a pro.
He's a pro.
And he's done his homework before he went out to see what the actual market value of it. But if the market value is $225 and he's putting it down at $190, that's one thing. And it could also be.
But that approach would then get the price up to its actual value.
Then why not start with the actual value then?
Because if you start with the actual value, you have less demand.
Or maybe you're not comfortable in your ability to sell the house.
Touche. Ray says, ultimately, yes, but this smells like it's agent-driven to me. She sure had the appointment situation set up quickly.
Yeah, and in defense to that question, if we know that we're going to have a listing that's priced right? Priced right. And we talked about this. We had a matrix at one point in time talking about if you're below market value, you get so many more eyes. If you're above market value, you do that. So, somebody like Quentin and somebody a whole bunch smarter than me could probably answer the ethical question.
Yeah.
I can say we won't do that.
Quentin, what do you think? I see you watching, Quentin. Yonna says, lead with your best price.
Yeah.
Lead with the right price.
Yeah, and I think you run into that issue there. But I just think on.
What do you think, Michael? What do you think?
It's got 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll know. He's an ethics king, so he'll know if that's unethical or not. I just know we don't do it.
Sandy. Okay, so this is driving engagement already.
Yeah, got it.
Sandy.
Forget about my numbers.
Sandeep has a one for you.
Sure.
Real estate prices are going up every week. Does Keith Smith think it's going to continue into next year or slow down? I'm talking new construction. Lumber shortages, interest rates are low, and how much housing can Charlottesville take? So on the lumber shortages, Sandeep is talking about the supply chain.
Sure.
We learned from Keith Smith, we learned from John Kerber, Dominion Custom Homes, that that lumber costs are going up, which is influencing pricing.
Correct.
So Sandeep wants to know, does Keith Smith think it's going to continue into next year or slow down? She's talking new construction.
So we've got 4 pages of numbers about that, except
New construction.
Yeah.
But you can spitball.
Totally spitball, because I was in a meeting with the president of probably the largest track builder here on this region. Not track, production builder, we'll call it. Probably the second largest on it. And I actually asked that question because we're talking about a potential project together on that. And I represent a client that's producing some lots, and we're having that conversation. And I asked that exact question. So how you doing it? And the answer is we're eating it, is what the answer is. They're currently eating that difference. A little caveat about that. So we're talking about the land trust, and thank you for promoting it, and people know I chair that. So the project we did on Nassau Street that we put together, I designed, I budgeted, we built, we ran it like an actual project. Even though it's a nonprofit, we netted about 7 to 8% net profit. Net, clean net, bottom line. Do you know what the average builder makes net?
Tell me.
Between 4 and 6%.
Really?
So they don't make a big number.
Get out. Mm-mm. Is that production or custom?
It's pretty industry storm. If you talk to some of the guys, it's pretty.
The average.
That's net. That's net. That's bottom line.
Everything done. This is what I'm walking away with. The average builder is making 4 to 6% net profit.
That's somewhere around that. Yeah, it's not a huge number. And somebody who, I mean, builders won't tell them what their net is on a live thing.
That's surprising.
Yeah, if you just Google it and pull up National Association of Home Builders thing, it's pretty much, it's.
How about net with remodeling, my friend?
Oh, much higher than that. I don't know what that number is, but it's much higher than that. It's probably in the 10% range.
How come the difference?
It's much more complicated, right? It's much more expensive. Remodeling versus new construction, you can never, ever look at that as square foot equal. It's not. It
sounds counterintuitive, but how come it's more expensive? Because there's already something in play? People are living in the home?
A.
Yeah.
B, you never really know what the hell you get into until you get into it. So you've got to budget that in. It's always easier, right? You're in the ad business. You're in the website building
business.
There it is.
God, I love you. There it is. That's the chemistry. If someone comes to me with a project from another developer, it's always more expensive than us starting from scratch. Because I don't know how they built it.
That's exactly.
And then I have to go and study and learn their code. So it's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, or in this case, you open up a wall and you go, oh boy, right? And you can't see it, you don't know it, something was built 50 years, 100 years ago, you just don't know on that stuff. But to talk about, to go back to and it's funny, it's amazing how our chemistry working, the people watching is working, because I actually did a week over week, starting the end of August, like that split week. So August, September's the last half week of August and the first half week of September. But it's pretty interesting. I'll just take a look at the week from 9/11 to 9/17. Excuse me. We had 56 homes go active. This is this 25-mile radius we always talk about. Charlottesville, Albemarle, Fluvanna, Nelson, Green, Louisa, just Zions Crossroads. Did I get them all? I think I got them all. 31 went pending. The week before, 9/4 to 9/10, 37 went active. So we had a jump up of 19 more actives week over week. Interesting. Pendings were 10 that week. So when I look at that, I'm only looking at what went active for that week, and in our system, in our Paragon system, I can always also show what went pending in that week. So it's just literally week over week. What went active in that particular week and what went pending in that week. Not the same homes, right? But just a basic number. So we are, last week was 31 versus 10. That's a huge jump.
Year over year?
No, just week over week.
Week over week, understood.
So it was last week versus the week before. In that split week we were talking about, the 8/28 to 9/3, 24 went active, 13 went pending. So, that's a big jump last week.
Yeah.
So I've been tracking this week over week. I'm really excited to see what happens next week and see if that trend goes. There was a topic that I really want to. I get this question all the time, and I'm really reluctant to talk about it because of the
divisive nature of it.
And we've made 3 commitments on this network: no politics, no religion, and no pointing fingers.
Okay, we honor that most of the time.
I think we honor it all the time.
Yeah.
But I've been asked the question: so how is the presidential election going to impact what's going on?
That's a fair question.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, I don't know, right? Anybody who tells you they know, they're lying to you.
Right. No crystal ball.
There's no crystal ball here. But I will tell you, I did look historically, and historically what happens is September, October, everybody kind of times out a little bit because they're trying to figure out what's going to happen in November. And this pent-up demand kind of reshoots itself back in the first quarter of the first year. It seems like that's historically. And I don't know. I'm not a PhD. I'm just looking at this thing from going back into our
historical perspective,
our Paragon system to see it. I honestly, and we talked about this off air because we're going to talk about our bet again here in a little while. I don't see it slowing down. I do not see the normal, hey, let's just wait and see what happens. It may be just the opposite. People are rushing in, because I was looking at the upper end stuff is now moving.
Yeah.
Right? The 1 million and up, that stuff is all of a sudden starting to churn a little bit. So it's 3 questions I've been getting a lot lately. What's the presidential election going to look like? Is capital gains going away? And we'll talk about that in a minute. And what about 1031 exchanges?
Yeah.
So that's the 3. Now that's kind of.
Man, this is going to be a good show for me here. I'm going to sit back and learn 3 of those 3 are right. Affect my life.
Judah, can you start the clock now? Because I'm going to bill you by the minute.
I was going to say, I knew you were going to say that. I'll send you at $2.95 an hour is what you could say to me.
What? Goodbye. See you later.
You got more questions coming in, but
yeah,
keep
sure.
going.
No. Go do the questions.
Should we do the questions?
We can come back to that.
Okay. So one of the fantastic partners of this program, Scott Morris.
Hey, Scott.
He says, this is something I see in Richmond frequently versus Northern Virginia, seems to price at the top of the market. And he's talking about what Ray was talking about, Scott Morris. We should give some love to Scott Morris as a broker.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give some love because at 6:30 in the morning, he answered a question about what we're talking about today. So that's the kind of guy he is. That's a kind of trusted advisor. You got a question, you call him at 6:30, he picks the phone up and answers it.
There you go. Scott Morris, one of the best in the business. We love you, Scott Morris. You're going to have to help me understand this one.
Sure.
The OSB, this is Ray, the OSB went from $8 to $23 a sheet.
Sure.
A framing package for a similar house in Hancock Farms just went up $9K.
Sure.
The lot next door, and the builder is stuck unless he has some sort of escalation in the contract.
That's exactly right. Ray, we tackled this a couple of shows ago.
Can you layman's terms that for me?
Yeah, sure. So OSB is oriented strand board, so it's plywood,
Okay.
right? So it's technically not plywood.
Okay.
Plywood is when you put different sheets together, and that's how you make plywood. Oriented strand board is flake board. Some people call it flake board.
Okay.
So that's an important component, right? It's on the walls, it's on the ceiling, it's on the floor. It is a huge percentage of the structure of the house. But what Ray's talking about, the average framing package, which that would be one of these OSB 2x4s, floor joists, the physical structure itself, is between 10 and 15 grand a house. And he's 100% right. We talked about this, about the escalation clause. Those escalation clauses are more than likely going to be in the smaller builders and the medium-sized builders. The bigger builders, at least according to this president that I spoke to, they're just going to eat it. They're going to eat that 1%, right? Because that's pretty much what it's going to translate to in the cost of it, and they're just going to eat it. Now, this particular firm and some of these larger firms, so lumber is like oil. It's traded. It's a market-driven thing, or oranges or whatever. So what they do is they pre-buy bulk quarter ago. So they're lagging. So these big guys' pricing will be lagging to the smaller guys. The smaller guys that buy it from the local
from Blue Ridge
or Better Living,
Yeah.
which is a home run of a company. That's where I bought all my stuff for decades. Great John Nunley, great guy. So that's going to be they're going to be able to absorb that 1% a little bit more because they bought a lot of lumber 3 months ago. The small guy's not. And they have to put in escalation clauses. And we talked about this a few weeks ago. That's what I used to do. I would say, it depends on what was going at the time. At one point in time, it was drywall, right? It was a Chinese drywall problem.
Yeah.
And so you put in an allowance in your contract. This is X dollars for drywall, X dollars for framing package, whatever that is. I used to eat the first 3%. Anything above that, you ate. And it was in the contract, and it was discussed very above board in the beginning because, for all intents and purposes, you don't want your builder to run out of money before he finishes the house. That's not a good thing for anybody.
Right.
Right. So anyway, but thank you.
Scott Morris says, thank you for telling everybody in Charlottesville, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, and the country
that he wakes
that
up.
I take phone calls at 6:30 in the morning. Thank you, Keith Smith.
Well, should I say that he's took one at 5:30 once before?
I don't think you just did. Scott Morris, your phone can ring at 5:30 apparently.
No, time out. He's got a newborn.
I know, he's already up.
He don't sleep, so that's a BS thing.
He's already up.
Thank you for taking the call, Scott.
And Scott's the man. Scott Morris is the man. More comments coming in.
Sure.
This is a good one. It sounds like to our family, now is when we should be trying to sell our home. Please relay that to Keith.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now the follow-up question is, do they have somewhere to move to?
Man, chemistry's working. What a great question. That is a real question to ask, right? So when we are interviewing whoever, and it's a two-way interview. When you sit down to do a listing agreement, it's a two-way interview. Everybody needs to feel comfortable with one another, right? And one of the questions we're going to ask is, okay, do you have a place? Do you have a go? Somehow or another you work into the conversation. Do you have a go? Some people, hey, I'm relocating. Excuse me, I apologize. That was the
croissant. That was the braided croissant.
Note to self: don't have that before the show.
You did after the show. J-Dubs, put lies under the desk for us if we could. Thank you.
So. Apologize for that, everybody. So the question is, you're going to do that, or we talk about this all the time. Do your homework. Get to know. It's all relationship stuff. Get to know. It's not about how much you're going to get for the house. It's not about dollars. I know that's someplace you like to go, but it's what does Mr. and Mrs. Miller, what's their goals? What's their objectives? What are we trying to help you achieve? And if Mrs. Miller says, look, we're Keith and Yonna, we're empty nesters, and we want to retire, or we want to be closer to grandchild up in Connecticut. By the way, if she's listening, that's not happening.
Is that what she wants?
No, of course not.
Okay.
There's not enough money in the world for me to move north.
Right.
South, different story.
Yeah, south, different. Florida, yes.
It's funny.
State income tax, none.
I'm knocking on 60. I'm very close to 60. And I remember when I was your age, I couldn't understand the fascination of Florida. Now when I wake up and it's cold and my fingers hurt and my knees hurt and my back hurts, and I go, man.
I get it.
I get it. Florida sounds good about right now.
Your beautiful 7/8 says buyers will need to be prepared to pay more. At the same time, with interest rates continuing to be low, their purchasing power will also be higher. So it almost evens out in the wash. Instagram, I see a lot of people on Instagram Live today. Put your comments in the feed. The questions we're relaying to the distinguished gentlemen are coming from Facebook. Instagram, you could populate the feed with some questions as well. Yonna's on point.
On point, and actually...
is she looking at our paper?
She's not, because I did this in my little cloister upstairs, so she doesn't know what we're doing here. But she's spot on, right? And this was the conversation I had with... at 8:30 in the morning with Scott Morris.
You just put the laughing face emojis on. It was 8:30 in the morning.
8:30 in the morning. Wasn't 5:30. I made a total mistake. Sorry about that. And his cell number is no. So what I did is I looked in third quarter to date, right?
Okay.
Third quarter to date. That's page number 2 there. Robin.
You numbered the pages for me. That was
I
so
numbered
nice.
it. Right. What a great Scott, Robin. And you're supposed to say,
holy cow, Batman.
There you go. Pow, bam.
Yeah. Pow, bang, boom.
Boom. Oh, God. July 1.
Yeah.
917.
Yeah.
Sold. Same 25-mile radius. 844 units. Median sale price was 227. Interesting stat that we've added to our conversation. What was the median list price? So the median list price was 330. So we're only about a 2K split between that. But if you compare that to the same time period in 19, did you see that number?
Yeah.
So it was
okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
763.
Yeah.
So we are up year over year of 50 units. So the third quarter, I'm just going to say the third quarter.
Yeah, just make it super simple.
The third quarter is finished.
Yeah.
Right. Just call it the third quarter. Third quarter of this year was 844. Third quarter of last year was 763. Right.
And how about price?
Price, as you're seeing, jumped up. Median sales price last year, 310. This year, 327. So it's up about 17 grand.
So it's getting more expensive.
It's getting more expensive. Days on market of 19 last quarter.
Yeah.
23 the quarter before. So that's not that different.
I absolutely love these numbers.
I know.
Can I make a suggestion?
You want a better slide.
I mean, for the viewers.
Yeah.
That way, and I know this puts more onus and work on you, but if we had these numbers in slide form that we could put on screen.
How does Liza with her pause work? Could she do that with the
I mean, she works for treats.
She works for treats. Liza.
But if they saw what we were seeing on screen.
Yeah, I thought about that, but it took me, quite frankly,
takes a while.
From 0 dark 30 to
do that.
To do this.
Yeah.
So, and if I was smart, I'd probably do this the day before, but.
You're a busy man.
I'm trying to make money. So it's interesting, but if you just, I wanted to take a real close look at the last 4 years. So in 17, the third quarter in 17, it was 691 units have sold. Third quarter in 18, 713. Third quarter in 19 was 763, and then the last quarter is 844. So we've been climbing ever since. But to answer Scott's number, right? So one of the things I've added in this list was so last quarter, 3% average mortgage rate. 17 was 4%. So what Scott's trying to tell us, so in 17, I was 275, sale price, meaning sale price. Last quarter, I was 327. But I'm 1 point lower in my mortgage rate.
So you got buying power. It evens out in the wash. If anything, it's more on the other side.
It goes the other way.
Right.
So your affordability index, we talk about this all the time, goes up. I'll make slides. I apologize, guys, but it took me kind of all morning to get some of these numbers together and make sure, because I want to make sure I get it right. So
the Fed has said we're going to keep interest rates at these levels for a while. So can we expect that this could go into Q1, Q2 next year?
And I think that's what
post-election.
And this is me and you spitballing in front of however many people are watching.
Yeah.
I look at this real estate market at the moment as an aircraft carrier that's at full throttle. Even if that aircraft carrier goes to no throttle, the momentum of that aircraft carrier is going to go miles before it stops, right? It's just such a huge structure.
That's a hell of an analogy.
Yeah, thank you. So I think even if something would have to happen so I can't even say the word,
convoluted?
No.
Catastrophic?
There you go.
Okay.
Catastrophic. Something has to happen so catastrophic that aircraft carrier sunk, right? It gets sunk. It goes down. Other than that, this aircraft carrier is going to cruise along, right? There's going to be some this and that, and I think what my projection, what I think the market's going to see is, I think you're going to see this. I think you're going to see Next week, still climbing. I think somewhere around October, I think you're going to see a leveling off. Maybe a little dip, but not too much. Leveling off. I think whatever's going to happen in the election, all of a sudden in December or in January, everybody's going to realize the world didn't end, right? And it's the pent-up demand is just going to shoot back up. What the hell do I know?
I know. I agree. I agree. I think the news cycle will change in December or January to, instead of cases and hospitalizations and deaths and headlines, it's going to be more optimistic about managing, and we're going to start seeing the word vaccines and headlines. Yeah. And that'll breed what? You taught me. What will that breed?
Confidence.
There you go.
Yeah. But I think it's there, and we need to rally back up to this.
How the election will impact housing.
I think we just did it.
Okay.
Right? In my opinion, it's an aircraft carrier. I think the election is not going to have too much of an impact on it, right? I think the structural things of the housing market, as long as they stay solid, right? Unemployment's dropping a little bit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the unemployment numbers that are high really are renters, which is not impacting what we're talking about here now.
Most
which
vulnerable.
is extremely vulnerable, and that's the reason why, I do everything I can on the Regional Housing Partnership and this program that the commission has set up to help those in need. So that's what we need to do. We have to give back, right? But in reality, it's this aircraft carrier, man. It is just full throttle, and anybody who's ever owned a boat before, once you put it in neutral, it takes time to stop. And there's current that's going to move it and shape it one way or the other. And that's kind of how this I think is going to go.
That was one of the best analogies you've used in 2 years on this network.
Really?
It was approachable and understood by the layman. Which is difficult often with topic material like this.
It just came off the top of my head.
It was great. Well played.
Can I go now? Am I done? Am I finished?
Costanza go out on the high note? Remember that one?
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
I'm out.
That was when he was with the Yankees, right?
Yeah.
That was the thing with the Yankees, yeah. So look, what time we got here? A little later, we're gonna talk about our bet and what I think is going to happen in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I might be losing this bet.
Well, we're going to modify it.
We don't have to do that.
We're going to modify it. Okay. We're going to modify it. I want to be fair.
Okay.
Because I have a bit of an advantage to this than you do. But one of the questions we keep on, at least I've been asked all week long, and literally I'm watching a text that came in. For some reason, I thought I shut off my text, but I didn't. Mm-hmm. Asking this question, what about capital gains? So I think capital gains 1031 exchange, for those who don't understand 1031 exchange.
That's what I'm going through.
You're going through a 1031
Yeah.
exchange. Got it. You've designated a piece of property and all that
my tenant, without saying too much.
You need to explain what a 1031 exchange is.
Okay,
please.
All right, I'm doing this in layman's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I have a rental property. Tenant is interested in making the purchase.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And the money that I'm going to get from this deal, I want to not expose to a ridiculous tax hit.
Sure.
So I can take this money and roll it into another piece of property over X period of time. I can identify a few pieces of property.
Need a real estate agent?
What's that?
Need a real estate agent?
I need a real estate agent.
Sorry, couldn't pass up on that one.
I need a...
You shouldn't sell that on your own. You need representation.
Yeah, trusted advisor.
Trusted advisor.
Call Bill Tucker at Charlottesville Settlement Company.
Call Ray. Ray will take care of you.
So basically, this is layman's perspective. This is the first time I've ever gone through a 1031 exchange, so I've learned a lot here. If you identify, I think it's 4 properties, you can then modify those 4 properties you identify and add a couple more. But after a short window, I think it's 18 months, you eventually have to take that money and roll it into something else, or you get stung mightily from a tax standpoint. That's what I've learned. Is that right?
Yeah, in layman's terms, that's exactly
layman,
it.
Yeah.
Right. The bottom line is you've got to take that capital, that cash, and reinvest it in a specific period of time. You have to designate the property, then you have to close on it, and you have to move forward with it. But the bottom line is, otherwise you get
stung.
Yeah, pretty stung, pretty bad. Capital gains is a little different than that, right? So. Are you comfortable with me talking about your house that you just bought?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just bought a home. I think it was less than a year, right?
March 28th we closed.
So a little over a year.
Yeah. Or March 28th of this year.
Got it.
Yeah. So like 9 months, 6 months, 6 months.
Got it. So let's assume you wanted to sell that. You're going to get hurt pretty bad if you're underneath a year, but most people don't do that.
Yeah.
So currently where it's set up right now, if you're in your house over 2 years, Mr. and Mrs. Miller decides to sell the house, and let's say you're super blessed and you make $300,000 off of it, right? So you purchased it for, let's say $300,000. I'm just picking numbers, right?
Yeah.
Right. And
you can use the numbers if you want.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I'm using it for me because it's easy for my brain.
Okay.
So I bought it for $300,000. I sold it for $6,000, right? I've owned it more than 2 years. I made $300,000 on it. So currently, with you and Mr. and Mrs. Miller, that $300,000 can go up to $500,000. So you're not taxed, so you're tax exempt on that. If that goes away, that $300,000 gets zinged just as bad as a 1031 exchange does. So a 1031 exchange is typically investor kind of stuff. Capital gains is everybody. So the reason the people are asking this of us, we have a couple of listings that we're looking at doing in, let's say, Belmont, that they maybe bought the house for $100,000 10 or 15, 20 years ago, and they're going to get $400,000 for it. That they're worried about, they're questioning, will I be taxed on this profit? And the thing is, currently, as a rule, the answer is no. So as long as that number, as long as that delta isn't, if you're a married couple, isn't greater than $500,000, you don't get zinged. But if that goes away, that takes a huge impact on that. And then they may not move.
You got a lot of people watching right now. We're live on Instagram Live. Michael Guthrie has a comment. I'll get to that comment. Michael Guthrie.
Whatever it is, I'm sure he's right.
Presidents watching the show. So let me throw this to you.
Was anybody contradicting what I just said?
Well, Guthrie's got some perspective on it.
Got it. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure he does.
Yeah. So should I just use my house?
I use it whatever you want. It's just, it's whatever you.
Well, pick your brain.
Okay.
Okay, so
it may be wrong, but pick it anyway.
Purchase for $7,000, close for $7,000.
Got it.
Going through a refi.
Got it.
Appraised at 830.
Got it.
Someone walking by the neighborhood, cold knock on the door offer.
Sure.
You interested?
Got it.
Here's the bag.
Got it.
I say, Mrs. Miller, let's do this right now. She's like, easy, easy, easy. But is becoming more open-minded to it and stay within the same neighborhood, just a different spot.
Sure. Currently, as long as that delta between the two is not greater than 500,000, you're good to go.
Okay.
You're good.
But if it changes?
Then you're not.
Yeah.
And you don't know. It would probably be.
When would it be?
I don't know. So what has to happen? All that IRS rules have to change. And then that goes back to my aircraft analogy, right? And that's the analogy. Actually, I didn't think of it on the fly. I actually used it yesterday in a conversation. We'll hold a timeout. I'm afraid to make a decision. I'm afraid to move because of what might happen in 2021. Well, if there's a change of, there's a new sheriff in town. It doesn't really matter what color they are or what stripe they are or what they are or they D. It doesn't really matter. That aircraft carrier is going to take quite a bit of time to change. So that whole capital gains thing isn't just going to change tomorrow. Election happens and Mickey Mouse gets elected, right? Doesn't matter who. The wheels of government, kind of grind really slow. It's going to take forever for that to happen. So if you're looking to buy a house now, worrying about or in October, November, December, and you might be closing in January, this is not going to change between now and January. It's probably not going to change, if at all. So it's more of this confidence thing. But you've got me curious about what Michael's thinking, because I may be off base big time.
Chief Executive Officer, Roy Wheeler Realty Company, a trusted name of the game. Roy Wheeler Realty Company. Wow, Instagram, you are blowing up.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah, Michael Guthrie, great people. Michael Guthrie says you can buy as many properties with the same amount of gain realized. 180 days, I think, not 18 months.
So he's on 1031.
Yeah, he's talking 1031s. Yeah.
And he may be right. I didn't write down the particular note, so I will take that as absolute gospel.
Scott Morris, get in here on this topic. Give us some perspective.
1031s.
Yeah.
It's actually it's not Scott. And
Bill Tucker.
Well, Bill or
my CPA.
I'm going to bring. Actually, I thought of this morning. I'm going to bring back in my CPA to answer that question.
Yeah.
Want to go to bed?
Let's go to the bet.
Or do we got any questions on the feed?
Let's do the bet. We do, but I want to do the bet here because this is important. And Guthrie's watching, and Guthrie's got a stake in this bet.
He does.
Yeah. We're going to talk the bet. Should I outline the bet for everybody?
Sure.
Okay. So, and this is a testament to the distinguished gentleman in Keith Smith here. Was it probably April? I think April of this year.
It was
like right after COVID hit.
No, we was in the middle of it. We were talking. I was predicting the V.
Yeah.
And you were pushing back on it.
Yeah.
And then I threw out a bet.
So this is right during the thick of COVID, and we were unsure how this was going to impact the market. And on this show, we like to banter. Two dudes that like to do some BSing, who are alpha dogs that are competitive. He proposed a bet on the fly, and he knows I like prop bets. And his prop bet is a proposition bet. His prop bet was Q4 2020, the last 3 months of 2020, would surpass Q3 2019 in total volume sales, but we removed new construction from the equation.
Mm-hmm.
So the last 3 months of 2020 would beat January, February, March, April, May, June 2019 from a sales volume standpoint. And this is in the thick of COVID. When at that time,
I think we need to go back to the tape because I thought we agreed to 95. Michael will know for sure.
It's surpassed. It's surpassed. But you're right. We have it documented. So we could do a little research and find it. Let's just say surpassed for the sake of this show, because let's be honest, you've got some things working in your favor over here. So I'm like, there's no way, Jose.
If I had time yesterday, I was just going to buy you a bourbon and give it to you.
No, I do not mind being wrong.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm like, this was the time, Keith, when we were leaving the grocery bags in the garage.
Well, just put it in perspective.
We were taking our clothes off in the garage and not bringing them inside.
And had no toilet paper.
That's
exactly
right. This is when it was crumbling.
That's exactly right.
Now, consumer confidence has gotten much better. The Federal Reserve backed the economy. They did all these stimulus rounds. Interest rates are at fantastic low. And right now, and you thought for a long time you were going to lose this bet. But right now, it's looking like I'm going to lose this bet. I'm getting out of your way now.
Before we get into this, two things. I was asked the other day, what do I think about the housing market right now? I just said, remember when you couldn't buy toilet paper? That's the housing market right now. And the other thing is, the only thing that really frightens me, not frighten me, that's a wrong choice of words, concerns me, that's a better choice of words. For the real estate market, all this money has to get paid back. And I'm not really sure that nobody really knows how that's going to look.
Right, I know. We're just accruing all this massive debt.
Dude.
That's why I'm putting my money in gold. I just put $2,500 into Barrett Gold.
Well.
Because I think gold is the hedge for that printing of all this obscene money. But go ahead.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you.
Oh.
You should put it in dirt.
Well, imagine you saying that. Who would I call to do that?
Well, real estate, I think, hedges inflation.
Because it's tangible.
And it hedges inflation right now.
Yeah.
I really think it does. Because I think we're in stagnation, frankly, at the moment. But in any event. So I took a look at just some numbers. I took a look at the fourth quarter of 19. So there was 881 sold, 26 days on market, and there was 325K was the median sales price. So that's our basis numbers, right? So what we're saying is I've got to be north of those numbers. Right? Mm-hmm. Well, actually, DOMs, I got to be south. right? I got to be greater than 880 to win. I got to be greater than 881.
Didn't we alter the bet and just call it sales volume?
Well, I think we're altering it again.
Okay.
Is what we're doing.
Okay, all right.
So 881, I got to be north of 881.
Yeah.
I got to be south of 26 days on market, right? So I got to be less. If I got more days on market, then that hurts me, helps you.
Yeah.
And 325K, I got to be north of that. And the reason we probably want to modify this.
Well, you're saying because of the pendings that are closing in Q4 already in the books. How many pendings closing in Q4?
So from the 1st of September to yesterday, there's 261 units in pending.
So 261 units are, while they went under contract.
They haven't closed yet.
And Q3.
Correct. We'll close
it
Q4.
Lags, and the close will be Q4, so that helps the distinguished gentleman. And not only is it 221?
261.
Not only is it 261, but the price on those 261s has jumped dramatically.
Well, let's add a caveat to that.
Okay.
That's the list price. We don't know what it's going to be until it closes.
Understood.
Right. So.
We can imagine that it's probably not lower.
Well, when we looked at
it. Look at what you just told us, Geese.
We looked at the.
Look at the Cheshire cat over there. He's bragging, but doing it humbly because he respects me and we're homies.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
Yeah, well, when you're looking at, last year, the same quarter, we have a 7K difference, 5K. So the
tea leaves
the difference between list price and sales price is probably in the 5 to 10K price range. So even if you take that off of the 375, I'm still beating 325, right? So I just. If you in front of all these people, I feel it's a little unfair.
I don't mind being wrong.
Okay.
I don't mind being wrong.
Well, because
I would say this. If
I'm a third there already.
Because if the roles were reversed, what I would be doing on this show is Keith Smith, where's my bourbon? And you know that.
Yeah, but I love you too much, man. I wouldn't do that to you.
Come on.
So I wouldn't.
We're buddies.
I wouldn't do that to you.
I mean, long story short, this market is red hot.
Yeah. So
it's what? What is it?
En fuego.
En fuego.
Damn fancy words. So, but to go back to some.
You're just laughing.
I'm trying, Judah. So the go back to one of the questions in the feed, right? Unless all of a sudden 261 contracts fall apart. Now there'll be a percentage of them that are going to fall apart, right? Whatever's under contract right now, just they're not going to close for whatever reason, right? So that 261 may be 225, 250. The percentage of contracts to close may change a little bit, but I'm still there.
Yeah, you're looking good. You're looking really good. We should get when we
days on market are 12, by the way.
When we do this, we should get because the bet was a bourbon from Riggleman.
We should get him on the show.
Right.
I can do that.
And then we have him via Skype. Maybe at that time, could he be in studio at that time? Because at that point, that's Q1 when we would be enjoying it at the end of.
Well, the good news about that is he won't be in office anymore.
Right.
So he can just be a regular guy.
Yeah, and if you notice with his social media, he's being much more a regular guy these days.
I always thought he was.
Me too. Approachable dude.
He did right by us in our show. Always did. So
yeah, get him on and be like, Denver, this is amazing. Oh my gosh. The only fatal flaw with this idea is it's going to be 10:30 in the morning.
Drinking.
Yeah, 10:30 in the morning. But hey, last Friday your buddy Richie was smoking a cigarette.
Dude.
Yeah. It was hilarious.
It was funny. God love him. That's Richie.
Best show.
Yeah, we're done with real estate unless there's some other questions.
No, let's go.
Was there any questions on the feed?
Well, most of the questions we've already answered, and it's everybody saying, list now.
Yeah.
Rates stay the same.
Sure.
What happens in November? We've answered.
Yeah, I don't. The short version of it, I don't think November is going to impact us one way or the other. I think stopping that aircraft carrier is going to take a bit of a pretty catastrophic event. The sinking of an aircraft carrier is the only way that I think this is going to happen. I think that is going to go. I called a client unrelated to real estate.
Well, this is a good question.
What's
this
that?
is a tough question. And this is actually good for you because you're a Class A contractor.
Sure.
Iris Luck.
Hey, Iris.
if lumber is like oil and you own timberland, how do you find the best buyer for the timber?
Well, first of all, if it's local timber, it's usually pulp, so that goes to paper. There's very rare, you will not see too much timber around here that'll end up in lumber. All that's coming out of Canada.
Why is that?
It's just where the lumber is. It's the quality of lumber. It's the hemp fir and the spruce and all that stuff. The trees around here, and it's a great question because when I started developing 100 years ago, right, 87, 80, 89, I was under that impression. Great, I got all these trees. Let's call a lumber mill and kind of do it. And it's unfortunately the value isn't there, and it has to be a lot of it in order to do it. But I was a little disappointed. But I tell you, I did do a subdivision once where there was some really gorgeous oak trees that actually got sent to Japan, and that was some money in that. But yeah, it's all this lumber's coming from the Northwest, right, from Canada, and part of the whole reason of the thing is this tariff war that's been going on soft lumber. It's not the last 4 years; it's been going on since the 80s. And the World Trade, what is it? I can't remember. There's an organization that does the World Trade, or WTO, I think it is, that is helping with that. But that's the issue. This has been going on since the 80s. If you Google the cost items, I've seen this multiple times over 30 years.
Good question, Iris.
Great question, Iris.
Yeah.
Call a lumber guy and say how much does it work?
Yeah, she's saying not local is
Got
what
it.
she was looking for.
Got it. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. Totally.
All right, my friend, you had a couple things you wanted to get to.
No, I just wanted to spend some time with my buddy Jerry and wrap up the show. The show on Friday was pretty emotional.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to thank.
It was the 9/11 show.
I wanted to thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
And I generally in the mid-hour I'm kind of busy.
Yeah.
But I actually watched your show yesterday.
Great.
And it takes a real man, a real person, to do what you did.
Thank you.
That's to open up emotionally in front of how many hundreds of thousands of people or whatever the amount of people that are watching that. Personally, I'm proud of you, man.
Thank you.
That takes a lot of guts to do that.
I will say this, and James King, fellow Marine, has a question for you.
Sure.
There is something, and you can attest to this, there is something about being on a set like this with a bunch of lights and a bunch of cameras and a bunch of people watching. And we talk, the show is real talk. We talk real stuff.
We talk real stuff.
It's not BS, it's real stuff. It brings out the emotion out of you. And then what I hope people realize is we spend quite a bit of time together. Barbara Lundgren, who's watching.
That was an awesome show yesterday.
I spend quite a bit of time with Barbara, and I'm seeing her be real and vulnerable and sincere. And Barbara, Lundgren, who I have tremendous, she is a friend now.
Yeah.
After spending, a friend.
I haven't met her, but I feel like we're very close.
Right, because of her, right? Because she's real.
Absolutely.
So when she's talking about how this wedding industry and this event industry is really hammered her career and her business, as someone who's friends with, you know what she did? She woke up yesterday, hours, when the sun rising, and she made Judah and I fried chicken.
Who does that?
She brought in on my birthday a homemade pound cake.
I have to be friends with her.
Who does that, right? Except an amazing human being. Yeah. So when she's here talking about these vulnerabilities, it's the emotions come out. And it's Barbara is a reflection of that entire industry that's just been destroyed. And it's not to any of their fault. It's this ridiculous thing that no one planned that is devastating people.
Yeah. And I want to address that for a second, but I want to go back to Friday's show.
Okay.
And you and I texted on Saturday, and I meant what I said. That was a watershed moment that show was a watershed moment for our relationship. That was a watershed moment for Real Talk. It was a watershed moment for, I'd like to think, for this network, because, it showed you're real, right? We're real. We're real people. We have real emotions. We have real feelings. Sometimes people watch these shows or maybe watch your show and kind of maybe equate it to watching this crap on TV, right?
Uh-huh. I don't think anyone does that.
So it's exactly my point.
Yeah.
And you've just, I just think it was a watershed moment. I can't think of anything of it, and I can't tell you how proud I am that we were part of this.
Well,
and
this is what he did on the 9/11 show. He brought on an individual that is tight with his family, a friend that has become family. And this particular individual, remind me of his name again.
Vinny Kamash.
Vinny Kamash. His father was a window cleaner.
Rocco. Mm-hmm.
Rocco Kamash on the World Trade Center.
Tower 2.
Tower 2. And Vinny did not find the remains of his father.
Was not.
His father was working in Tower 2 when the terroristic attack happened.
Did.
So Vinny is literally on this show going to the 9/11 memorial in New York City with his kids, which he does all the time on 9/11, to honor his father.
She has one child.
His one child, to honor his father. And I immediately got to thinking about my dad, and I talk about my dad a lot on the show. Extreme positive influence on my life.
Sure.
An entrepreneur, my dad.
Sure.
2 CPA practices, CPA, a sounding board for me, taught me how to trade stocks.
Sure.
When we were 12 and 13, we would get out the print newspapers, and he would say,
"What's that?"
He would say, "You guys have $50 in the escrow account." We never knew if we did or not. Pick some stocks to invest in. And he would track them for us. And based on our performance, we would get a payday from those stocks. So I've been trading stocks since I was 12. So I have not seen my father since December of 2019. For fear, my mom, his best friend, his rock, her health is perfect, his is horrible, that someone with a quadruple bypass, diabetes, and early onset Parkinson's, if he even gets anywhere near this COVID,
Sure.
he is the demo that's dying.
Sure.
So that would devastate her. They are like two people, like you and Yonna.
Yeah.
They don't do anything without each other. Like it's them, it's like,
I get it. Been living it for 35 years.
And if something happened to him, she would be lost.
I wouldn't know what to do without you.
Right. So I just started thinking about the Kamaj family, and then it brought, feelings to my father.
Well, we had a conversation. Go see your dad.
The Cuban mother that I have.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Do you have any of those moms that are so passionate and full of love?
Oh, God.
But you fear them? You know what I'm talking about?
The good news is my mother's not watching today. And the answer is yes. I know this very well.
I love her dearly.
Cuban, Italian. That's all I got to tell you.
When that thing flashes in her eyes?
Oh, yeah. My mother's gritting her teeth. When you see the white of her teeth, you better watch out. I made you, I can make more. But to go back to Barbara.
And she's watching.
Thank you. So we've been there and done this, Yonna and I, Barbara.
Meaning?
We lost everything we had. We were caught in this 2008 to 2010 slow roll. Right? We had $17 million worth of projects in the ground, lost every bit of it. Right? And it is this, unless you've gone, it's like we talked about this, unless you go through Marine Corps boot camp, you can't understand Marine Corps boot camp. Unless you've gone through something like this, it's very impossible to understand it. We have. And I can tell you there is another side of it. There is positive on the other side of it. Because at the end of the day, the woman or the person who brings you cupcakes and fried
pound cake and
fried chicken.
How many pieces was it, Judah? Like 8 or 9? It's 2 bags. Yeah, an entire bag for him and an entire bag for me.
In the middle of a crisis like this that she's going through, you know what? This crisis will end. Right? It will end.
She's doing GoFundMes that she's originating for friends in the industry that are expecting triplets.
Sure.
She's not even thinking about herself.
Absolutely. A person like that will do fine, right? Because Barbara is very comfortable in the Barbara suit that she wears. She'll do fine. I know it's horrible right now, and believe me, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to have, your children see this process. We lived through all this, but in my case, I felt bad about myself for about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, and then the two of us looked at each other, my wife and I, and we just went to work. Right? We know, like Barbara, we didn't cause this. We didn't cause this implosion. We didn't cause all this problem. We just got caught up in it, right? And we just pulled our big boy pants and big girl pants on and moved on. And if I have an opportunity to speak to Barbara right away, personally speak to her, she will get to the other side of this. I know it. Without intimately, having an intimate conversation with her about this, she will. So I wanted to get that out. That was a freaking awesome show you did yesterday. I was hoping Barbara was watching today to share with her that you'll get through this. Because this is the time when you really find out the people who love you and the people care about you.
Yeah, what is it? True character is not shown in good times. True character is shown in brutal times.
This is the time when people care about you.
James King's had a question for you.
Sure.
I've enjoyed listening to you guys. When did you study at Paris Island?
Let's say the early 80s, brother.
What are you trying to age him?
No, I'm just going to say the early.
James King's a Marine.
I know that. Semper Fi, Marine.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Semper Fi. Yeah. Let's say the early 80s.
Yeah.
When did he, what decade?
How about you, James King?
What decade? Let's just do decades.
I think James, what are you, about 37, 38, James, I believe he is? James King of King Family Vineyards. The dude is A-plus people. He's come on this set when we could do it in person and just crushed it.
So the next question typically will be, what was your MOS?
What is MOS?
Military Occupational Specialty.
What was your MOS?
So technically I was a cop. Technically I was an MP, but I never did that. I got selected for Marine Security Guard duty right out of boot camp, and unbeknownst to me, I didn't know. I got selected for it, didn't know it, got pushed around, didn't know it, and then the next thing you know, I'm in Quantico, anyway, it's a long story, but that's when I did 2 tours back to back on that.
Well, thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
He says, thank you for your service, Keith.
Thank you.
Served from 2007 to 2011. I was in 0402.
Tell him to explain that.
The 0402?
Yep.
Explain the 0402, Keith. Logistics officer.
Logistics officer, good.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah. Isn't this how we're doing this amazing?
So I wrote a note to
myself. We're communicating with somebody in Crozet right now.
I wrote a note to myself this morning. I hope we get some two-way interaction. So thank you, Marine, for doing that.
I'm going to say, James King, thank you for your service.
Now,
what else you want me to say? Well, you can say it to him.
Actually, we're probably going to see him tomorrow. Yonna and I were talking about hanging out at King
family.
The King Vineyards,
yeah.
Tomorrow. So,
that's awesome.
So I don't know what he looks like, but hopefully he knows what I look like.
James, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit. James King is the 6'4" jacked guy.
Got it.
That can bench 225. James, how much are you benching 225 right now? I say you're benching 225, James King, at least 10 times. And he's going to downplay it. I'm going to ask you how much you're benching 225 now, James King, and how about in your prime? Dude is jacked. So I'm sitting next to him. When we were doing the in-person, I was able to shake people's hands. There's 3 people that I stood next to, where I was like, okay, one of them was Dave Norris.
Sure.
That guy's a giant.
Yeah.
James King was the other one. And the other one, I'm drawing a blank on his name. He ran for Albemarle County Sheriff. He played football at UVA. Is that Patrick Estes? Is that right, guys? It might have not been Patrick Estes. But anyway, I was sitting next to him. I'm like, oh my God. Patrick Estes. Yeah, it was Patrick Estes. Yeah.
So, when you see this near 60 Marine wandering around with a glass of wine in his hand and a mask, come say hi.
Yeah. Yeah. He goes, my pleasure. Come on out. Happy to serve you. Hit me up on my cell. Gave you the cell number.
Thank you.
And he says, my bench is weak. And he's laughing. Yeah, right. I knew you were going to say that, Chase. Yonna is trying to get you into trouble.
Uh-oh. What's a bench? That's what
Yonna, I love this comment. Yonna says, phenomenal show.
It's 11:30, buddy.
That's okay. I enjoy spending time with you. Okay. Yonna says, phenomenal show. So, Smith, who is the most feisty of the Smith ladies? You never answered.
Man, you had to do that to me.
You're what?
Well, you didn't need to read it.
And you can't pick the pets.
Oh, wow. So, I'm trying to have a honey bunny weekend this weekend with my wife.
But don't pick Yonna.
Well, I got to be honest. It depends on the circumstances. It's amazing.
You're hedging.
I'm not hedging. No, this is absolutely true. It depends on the circumstances because the three women in my life tend to kind of bounce around from moment to moment. So I would say it depends, and we have to define feisty, right? I'm trying to walk my way out of this.
Yeah, you're doing a ton of double talk right now, and everybody sees the double talk.
Vote for me.
Double talking right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to walk my way out.
I think we're just looking for a name at this point.
Let me see, 11:27. I think we got to go. But
the answer is the fish.
The fish.
The fish.
Yeah. I'm going to stick with it depends on the circumstances on feisty. But if I actually had to pick, I would say that Yvonne, our youngest, would be, in your face in a heartbeat. And there's a story about that.
She came into the studio when I met her for the first time.
Yeah.
And I was so impressed. She said, "Hey, I'm Yvonne. Nice to meet you." And this is when we could shake hands. She shook my hand and I said, "Ow, give me my forearm back."
Well,
she's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so is my
beautiful.
oldest. So is my oldest daughter.
Yeah.
Our oldest daughter. She's 6'2".
Yeah.
But we're very fortunate. We raised one of the things I wanted my children to be able to do was important to me and to Yonna, is to walk into any room at any circumstance and be confident.
Right.
That's all. Be confident. Be confident in who you are. Be confident in your suit that you're in on this point. But true story. Yvonne was, and we got to go. You cut me loose.
Yeah.
But Yvonne was, I think 7 or 8. You were on a bus, and she's going to school, and 2 boys were picking on another boy. Bullying, beating them, hitting them and pushing them. And Yvonne said, needed to stop that. And one of the boys took a swing at her and connected. And let's say they walked off the bus crying. She said she defended herself, and that was that. But we got a phone call from the principal, and we had to go and see the principal. And of course, me being me, so this was 20-something years ago. I'm going, I don't have a problem. We don't have a problem here. There isn't a problem here.
Yeah.
The principal had a problem.
How so?
Whatever.
Yeah.
Had a problem. So I said, you know what? This is between you and her, and you guys figure it out. And I walked out the room, and she negotiated her punishment.
And what was the punishment?
I can't even remember what it was, but the fact that she stood up and negotiated her...
Made you so proud.
Oh, absolutely. She negotiated. She didn't. Whatever the punishment was, she didn't accept it and negotiated better terms for it. And I think it was something silly. She had to.
Yonna, can't you guys tell he's negotiating right now? Isn't it obvious to everybody? That's a good.
Hey, I got a meeting. I got to go to.
I know. Real Talk, powered by the Yes Team Realtors. Real Talk, powered by the Yes Team Realtors. If you can't already tell, you see the honor and integrity and character of this man. I mean, and Yonna, he calls her his better 7/8.
My nickname for Yonna is Schatzi.
Schatzi, yeah.
And that's German for sweetheart.
The Yes Team Realtors, guys, trusted advisors in the game. My name is Jerry Miller. He's Judah Wickhauer. Thank you kindly for joining us.
Great show, brother.
Oh, crushed it. One of the best.
Just us being us.
Right.